Hymns of Bharadwaja, Sukta 14. When mortal man, by his musings, comes to take pleasure of work and thought in the fire, he shines with light and is one supreme. He receives the impulsion that leads him to safety. The fire is the thinker and knower. The fire is a mightiest disposer of works and a seer. To fire the priest of the to fire the priest of the invocation, the peoples of men aspire in their sacrifices. Of many kinds are they who seek thy safeguard and strive with the fire for his riches. Men breaking through the destroyer seek to overcome his lawless strength by the order of their works. The fire gives to man a master of beings, a warrior who overbears the charge of the foe and wins the waters. The enemies are afraid at his very sight and scatter in panic from his puissance. The fire is the godhead who rescues mortal man by knowledge from the binder. A forceful thing is the treasure of his riches, unencircled by the adversary, unbesieged in its plenitudes. O fire, O friendly light, O Godhead, turn to the Godheads. Mayest thou speak for us the true thought of earth and heaven. March in peace to the happy abode and the men of heaven. Let us pass beyond the foe and the sin and the stumbling. Let us pass beyond these things. Pass in thy keeping, through them safe. So there has been a refining, subtle, sensing signification of complete, alive enlivenment, of inspiration, of coming to the truth of this which is both the thinker and the thought, the ingenerable perfection in the heart and soul and innermost truth of all things. And so how do we awake? How do we rouse? How do we pivot to the foundational inclusion and essence, life and soul and measure? How? But when mortal man, by his musings, by his full involvement of the central equalization at the essence and soul of his life, comes to take pleasure of work and thought in the fire, when communion and expression, integration and exercise by the thought of that, in the thought of that, through the hidden intuition of the unreverted expression of that supreme, consistent and calm measure, finds exhilaration, peace, entry and opening. Then, in this your reality's truth, he shines with light and is one supreme. When the full motivating presence, communion, expression and soul and cause becomes that with which its whole nature is enwound and could be destined and directed to, then the object, the means to its fulfillment, the origin that conduces unto it, all merge, all become indistinct, all, as the essence of the all-occupying heart and soul at the presence of all is, become one in the one supreme. And from that oneness comes the inspiration, from the oneness comes the exaltation, from the holding together of its undivided and only cause comes the smooth and full perspective rapture, which gathers and equalizes and integrates to the worked interior and fulfilled reality at the heart and essence and soul of things. He receives the impulsion, the inspiration that leads him in truth, in essence, and continence of being and soul to safety. For this, as I say, as is said, is the thinker and the knower. If nature was incontinent, if it was not engaged transcendently and presently and truly, faceting to the full of that which is, if the fulfillment of function was not contained and evocative of the unmitigated cause unto itself, then the full expression of agency, competency, utilization of function, integration to the competency of the supreme and supernal cause would be alienated from that which is. But as this is the thinker and knower, there is the full inspired, undefiled, direct and self-assumed basis at reflection, witness, orientation and expression of this eternal entire, which is most present and undistant to the heart and soul of all things. The fire is the thinker and knower, the meeting and the merge. The fire is a mightiest disposer of works. The work, the exercise, the expression of all, the unalienated reflection inhabited by the supernal and supreme of habitation, and the fulfillment of the highest coincidence of that communion and function being a seer, being the fulfillment of that being to its eternal fulfillment of operation and state. To fire the priest of the invocation, the peoples of men aspire in their sacrifices. What is this internal object, this internal perspective, this resolution to the fulfilled expression and experience of archetypality, of intellect, of fulfillment and fruition of function that claps its hands in that whole, but the fulfilled expression of that nature which is of comprehending experience and soul and self. And of all the ways that people awaken and organically are elucidated to this universal and the same in the heart that lives to the fulfillment of all through all things, of many kinds are they who seek thy safeguards and strive with the fire, for you are both the fuel and the realization. for his riches. The riches are your own. They cannot be possessed by accidents apart, but only fulfilled in the continent completeness and cause. The ever-sounding echo in the epicenter of its fulfilled integration and reality and founding. And thus men, humanity, human beings, breaking through the destroyer, seek to overcome his lawless strength by the order of their works, seeking to come in their attempts at order to the supreme ordering. The fire gives to man a master of beings, an inner agent at the full self of his nature, a ray that is only fulfilled by the unparted whole, which alone could give it to communion, competency, and cause of all combining, a warrior who overbears the charge of the foe and wins the waters. So the fulfillment of the fruition of process isn't just an alienated dislocation, but being unconditioned, it is inclusive to the full richness of all things. So the process held in its hand, the clarification in and of the through full measure of its comprising, cultivated godhead and godhead, divine mind and divine mind, Brahman and Brahman. Hence lives with the herding of the whole, and does not alienate its full expression, wins the waters. The enemies are afraid at his very sight, the simplicity and purity of its illumination and witness, and scatter in panic from his puissance, his pregnant power. The fire is the Godhead, this supreme conversion of reality and illumination of principle is the ultimate comprehending divine, is the Godhead, is the Brahman, who rescues mortal man by knowledge, by this full integral conformity of undivided realization from the binder, the entangler, the ensnarer, the becoming wedded to accidents and dislocations without seeing the supernal and present communion and cause unto the heart and completeness and only soul of all things. A forceful thing is the treasure of his riches, the wealth of its uncreate reality, alone can clarify, resound, gather unto the full, embrace the equalizing and purposeful ripple to the whole reflected integration of the entire comprising. A forceful thing is the treasure of his riches, and being uncaused, self-radiant, supernal, existing in the non-dislocated term of unseparated truth, it is unencircled by the adversary, unbesieged in its plenitudes. O fire, O friendly light, O purity that recollects and communes and recalls with a supernal grace before and above, and with a perfection that comprehends that beauty, that splendor, that richness, that friendship, that true self and communion of orientation and guide. So truly friendly, O fire, O light, in this condition and truth and reality, O Godhead, turn to the Godheads, O divine and ruling principle, in your own full expression and association, at the fulfilled being of this many to the truth of the heart of things, this full harmony of communion and cause. Awaken, and mayest thou become the articulator, mayest thou speak for us the true thought of manifestation eminence, of earth and heaven. March in peace to the happy abode and the men of heaven. The full communion that therein and thereof can be awoken. Let us pass safe beyond the foe adversariality and the sin and the stumbling. Let us pass beyond these things, pass in thy keeping, through them safe. So if this is the only, everything has to reside in and of and through it. So even the aspiration, the recollection, the resolution, the existing in the keeping of that reality, as all generations are utterances in the competency of the supernal and present cause, as the dawn is the foreshadowing of the full expression of the sun and the day, so may that exuding, unconditioned wealth and soul and principle, in the keeping of that truth, may our full richness of measure, our fullness of fulfillment, our purpose of life and being, find its sole witness, communion, and sanctum. So as we come towards rounding out these hymns of Bharadwaja, and we'll continue with other selections, I think what is most marvelous and inspiring is the subtlety, the sublimity, and the uncoerced richness. For if, as I think can only be the case and as all traditions hearken to and usher, the eminent is immanent, then the subtlety, the lived richness of communing experience, the integration of fulfilled process in reflection to the fulfilled functioning of that expression and ground, has to have an unmitigated condition to fully allow the wealth of that to express itself. So to take an offhand analogy, there's a great subtlety in an organism, in a plant doing almost anything. Let's say in a plant forming a flower. If we say the flower is only formed for some direct purpose, and say all this subtlety, all this nuance, all this richness of lived association is unnecessary, then the full dimension of richness, of communing and delivery, integration and expression of the eternal in its own eternity in the now would profane and try to manipulate what has to equalize to a recollection of fulfilled witness and cause. It puts the accident over that which is the possessor of the accident. It tries to intervene where fluidity clarifies to the soul of all. And so in a similar way, what we find most uniquely here is the thought is past all the colors, all the complexions. All the complexions are recollections, resolutions that are unimparted in the subtlety of their experience, because they are exercises of the being's integral nature for itself. So even in a later, we could say far distant issue, even someone, for instance, like a young would think that the natural exercise of our own essential natures forming an image, it doesn't exist to the will, it exists to the reality of that for which it functions. And so allowing that full freedom of relation allows the kind of subtlety and directness of involvement that I think we can always learn from and find the deepest communion and richness, life and perspective, dignity and composure of resolution and experience given into and unto. And so in that we shall continue.